to our next speaker. And our next speaker will be familiar to many people already on the call, Dr. Victoria Brownlee. So Victoria is the head of Athena SWAN Ireland, and she's got responsibility for strategic development and delivery of the charter here in Ireland. And prior to joining Advanced HE, Victoria worked as a lecturer and a researcher. She's going to give some top tips on how to apply for Athena SWAN Award for both bronze and silver level applications. So Victoria, you're very, very welcome again. It's a pleasure as always to have you on these panels and discussions. I look forward to especially I suppose the insight that you'd have around preparing for silver. So thank you, Victoria. Sorry, you're still on mute there, Victoria.
Sorry, turned on the video. Now I turned on the microphone. Thanks very much, Rory, for the introduction, and also to you and your colleagues for inviting me to speak at today's event. It's been fantastic to hear of the good practice from the departments, both at UCD and elsewhere, who've been through the process. So as Rory mentioned, I've been asked to provide some information on navigating the Athena SWAN process from the Advanced HE perspective, specifically with an eye to applying for a silver award. So a successful silver application is very much founded on the work that's laid at bronze level. And I think that's been demonstrated already by some of the people who've spoken. So I hope that means that whether you're listening from an institution or a department that has yet to apply for an award, or one that's currently implementing a bronze action plan, that there's something here for you and how you can be looking towards that silver award. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to talk briefly today about understanding Athena SWAN as a framework for achieving change. I'll say something of the award levels and what needs to be demonstrated to meet the criteria at bronze, silver and gold. And then in the kind of central section of the presentation, I'll look at impact, and Rory asked that question, what does it mean to show impact? So I'll try to address some of that and finish with some examples of effective presentation of impact in Athena SWAN applications. So as many of you know, Athena SWAN, the Athena SWAN Charter is a framework to assist higher education institutions address gender inequalities. The Charter is based on 10 principles, with the application framework guiding institutions and departments towards embedding these principles through a self-assessment of gender equality, that then informs the creation of evidence-based interventions or actions. And we've been hearing about some of those good actions this morning. And Neil, I think, had a really helpful phrase earlier about how he was trying to live the Charter within his School of Nursing. So these principles are really at the heart of what Athena SWAN is striving to do, and should be at the heart of all of our work. So the application process then prompts reflection on gender equality challenges and opportunities in institutions and departments across 5 key areas that many of you will be familiar with. So staff student populations, key career transition points like recruitment and promotion, career development supports, approaches to managing flexible working and career breaks, and of course, organisation and culture. So the award criteria is tied to the central tenets of the Charter framework, with each level recognising a positive step in the applicant's journey towards gender equality. So the Bronze Entry Level Award recognises institutions and departments that have undertaken an evidence-based self-assessment to identify key issues and then have developed a responsive action plan that's going to drive progress. Silver and Gold Awards are conferred on institutions and departments that can evidence that their work on gender equality has been impactful. So silver awardees will meet the criteria for bronze while also providing evidence of the impact of previous actions taken to address gender equality. Gold awards then evidence the sustained impact of gender equality work and demonstrate how departments or institutions are serving as a beacon of good practice, perhaps in their discipline, the sector, or beyond. So gold awards very much recognising leadership in the area of gender equality. So at all levels, I should say that applicants have autonomy over the actions that they choose to implement, and this allows for actions to be tailored to the unique context of applicants. The framework's emphasis on the creation of tailored action plans instead of a prescriptive checklist of activities is based on the understanding that applicants will need to employ different strategies and actions to progress gender equality depending on their specific context. So as one participant put it, concrete changes for gender equality have to be different in different departments because different departments have different histories. They all have to work within the framework of their own history to decide what's going to be most effective for them. So an applicant's journey to understand the gender equality challenges and opportunities in their context hangs on that self-assessment process that we've been hearing a little bit about through the other speakers. So the self-assessment gathers an evidence base for intervention through the collection of data that is analysed to identify reasons for underrepresentation and used to inform the development of a tailored SMART action plan. And these first 4 steps, this is the groundwork against which progress and then impact can be measured over time. So that impact that's needed to achieve silver and gold. But whatever stage of the application process you're at the moment, in the application submission, you're seeking to demonstrate that relationship between your data or your context and the actions that you plan to take. So if we were to distill the aims of a bronze, it's to use the application framework to establish a baseline for gender equality in your institution or in your department. So where you are at the moment in relation to gender equality. And that might include baseline data on your population, and this is where you might consider challenges particular to the discipline, or statistics on processes like promotion, data on staff feedback on those processes, as well as feedback from staff on policies, practices and culture. And then you're developing those targeted actions that are responsive to your context, to your baseline data, and that will give you clear success measures to enable you to track and monitor the progress you're making on gender equality. And on the next slide, you can see an action, an example of an action that does this. So you can read the detail of this example in your own time. What I really want to draw out is that there's a very clear rationale for this action that includes baseline data, and that's in column 2. And you can see there that 68% of PGRs and postdoctoral researchers with some gender difference report feeling unsupported in their career development. That issue is also supported by evidence gathered from focus groups, which suggests that both postgraduate researchers, postdoctoral researchers would welcome opportunities to discuss career development annually with their supervisors or principal investigators. So then in column 3, there's a series of clear actions proposed, and these include holding regular appraisal meetings, that include discussion of career development, and then dedicated workshops to support professionalisation. The success measures then in the final column correspond clearly to the issue that's been identified in the rationale column. So the success criteria here, they're measurable, and they're going to enable this department to gauge whether or not this action has been effective in addressing the issue that's been identified. So what I'm driving at here is that to be able to apply for silver, you need to be in a position where you can measure the effectiveness of the interventions you've taken in response to the issues and opportunities that you've discovered in your self-assessment. So on the screen, you can see the award criteria for silver departments and institutions. And I'm not going to read this out. You can read it in your own time, and a lot of you will be familiar with the text. But in both cases here, as you can see in the blue text, the emphasis at silver is on evidence of what's changed as a result of the activities you've undertaken. So wherever you are in the Athena SWAN process, if you've aspirations to apply for silver and meet that criteria for that evidence base for silver, you should think now about identifying areas where baseline data may be missing. And data can be missing for a whole variety of reasons. So maybe certain data has never been collected by your institution or by your department. And if you're already an award holder, you might have included actions to collect data in your action plan. So these might be actions to collect data on training or on postdoc recruitment rates and successes. If that's the case, I'd encourage you to check in on the progress of your actions to collect this data and create a record of the data when it becomes available, so that you can establish the baseline in those areas that you might not have already done so. You might also be missing baseline data because your consultation process has had weaknesses. And this is something that you might only discover as you're drawing towards the end of the self-assessment at bronze level, going through that data analysis process that we've just heard about. You might find that you haven't asked sufficiently specific questions about how staff feel about particular issues. It might be workload or their experience of bullying and harassment in the department. So future consultation may need to build in questions on those topics to establish the baseline figures for staff perception. Consultation might also be weakened if you discover you've missing data for particular groups in your institution or department. So you might find that you've a limited response rate, maybe from your technical staff or from senior staff. So thinking now about what you can do to improve engagement among those groups would be really helpful. You can also review your action plan to see if you actually have clear success criteria for all of your actions. And the Athena SWAN panel that perhaps reviewed your bronze application, and if you've gone to that stage, may have given you feedback on how actions can be strengthened and improved. So it's a good idea to review action plans when you're at that beginning of implementation, so that you are in a position to check in on the progress of actions and to identify any impact or beginnings of impact as a result of the interventions that you've taken. That process of regularly reviewing action implementation, of monitoring progress, will also of course allow you to spot ineffective or stalled actions that you might need to refresh or revise. So I want to think more specifically now over the next few minutes about what it means to demonstrate the impact mentioned in the Athena SWAN Silver Award criteria. So first of all, how might we define impact? Well, the OED defines impact as a marked effect or influence, and that definition definitely speaks to what's required in Athena SWAN. When it comes to impact, we're looking at a measurable effect on gender equality that can be clearly attributable to a specific action or actions. So impact isn't just having taken the action, it's the positive effect that your activity has had on gender equality. So as you're preparing for silver and thinking about meeting that impact criteria, where might you begin to look for evidence of positive change? Well, there are various indicators of change or of impact, and because the framework is context specific, impact will look different in different institutions and in different departments, and also between and within disciplines. But thinking generally, you might see changes in your staff or student numbers as a result of actions that you've taken. And some of the previous presenters have talked about how they've achieved impact in their staff and student populations. So you might find you're able to show an increase in the numbers of women or men where they're underrepresented in the student or staff population. You may also be able to demonstrate improving gender balance at more senior grades. But of course, depending on the financial constraints you're operating within or your staff turnover rates, your population might not change significantly over the period of your award. But that doesn't necessarily rule you out of obtaining silver, and you can certainly demonstrate impact in other ways beyond population data. So you can see evidence of positive change in relation to roles, representation, or measures of esteem. So you might, as a result of your actions, have seen that a shift in where women are represented in the institution or department towards positions of more influence. For example, more women on key decision-making committees or more women achieving success in external grant competitions. You may also see impact in your engagement levels, and it might be staff engagement with particular training or initiatives, or increases in the numbers of people applying for particular courses or roles that you've advertised. You can also look for evidence of impact, of course, in your qualitative data. And qualitative data is particularly helpful for indicating positive changes in the culture or in the implementation of policies and practices. So, for example, seeing improvements in staff feedback on processes, in staff awareness and engagement with particular policies, in improving satisfaction rates, if you're thinking about the working environment, culture broadly, and you may find that you have evidence that individual staff are benefiting from the actions that you've taken, and you might find that evidence in your free text comments in surveys or in the individual stories of staff members within your department, and at department level that could be represented as case studies. So really, you're tracking the effectiveness of your actions for evidence of positive change. And it might be helpful to tease out that process of evaluating action success if we look at the difference between action completion, progress and impact in a couple of examples. So in this example, a department has identified that 46% of staff indicate that they have not or they would not report bullying and harassment. And you can see that some actions have been taken to raise awareness of the issue, both of the issue as well as awareness of reporting procedures. And that includes a dedicated slot in an all-staff meeting where members of HR have come to outline the relevant policies and procedures. And the application notes that this session reaches 100% of staff. So that's definitely progress in communicating that zero tolerance message, but also in raising awareness of how people report. But then thinking about impact, if as a result of those actions, 90% of staff indicate that they understand the process for reporting bullying and harassment in the next survey, and there's a marked improvement in the number of staff indicating that they would report, that would be the impact of these actions. So similarly then, in this example, which addresses a gender gap in promotion success rates, running the workshops, that's progress, success rates improving for women in the next round, that's the impact. And sustained impact then that would be needed for gold is in this example, that year-on-year improvement in success rates for women applying for promotion. So I just want to finish by thinking about presenting impact effectively within the framework of the application form. So there's an example here from a silver applicant, and in this example there's good issue identification. So in this case there's a need to increase supports for early career staff in grant applications. The actions that have been implemented by the school are listed in the downward orange arrow. You can read those in your own time. If we look then at the bottom box, most of the impact measures listed here are actually completed actions, and really there's only one baseline provided in this example, and that is that there's an increase in the number of female delegates, up by 15%, and those are the individuals attending this grant writing course. So feedback for this applicant might be that they probably do have good impact, but they could demonstrate that much more clearly by including baseline data that will evidence the positive change that they've achieved as a result of their actions. This example is much clearer as baseline data from the previous self-assessment is provided against current data to demonstrate the improvement. So you can see where the orange arrow is, that they provide data from 2015 as well as 2018 for numbers of joint appraisals, but also improved satisfaction rates in staff. You can also, of course, evidence impact by including qualitative data, and in this example, a quote from the staff survey is included to demonstrate how a reduction in teaching and admin after return from maternity leave positively impacted the research outputs of a staff member. And you could also use your case studies to demonstrate how particular initiatives at department level have positively impacted individual staff members. So tracking progress and impact is going to ensure that your gender equality work remains relevant and responsive to the needs of your department or institution. And it's going to make sure that you're spending those valuable resources that you have, whether it's staff time or financial resources, on the most impactful and effective initiatives. Tracking impact, of course, will also allow you to identify the good practice that you have in your institution or in your department, which you can build on as an individual unit, but also you can share that good practice with other institutions and departments as an effective lever for change that is evidence-based. And then thinking more broadly, thinking nationally, tracking impact is important to us because it ensures that the Athena SWAN framework drives organisational transformation in relation to gender equality. So I'm just going to finish by sharing some resources with you. You can now download an Athena SWAN Ireland information pack from our website, and that will give you access to the various application forms, the handbook, and some resources. that we've produced to support the applicant journey. Within that, I wanted to highlight the new renewals process, which came out last year, and that's a more streamlined process for institutions and departments renewing their award at the same level. So if you're an expanded bronze award holder, you can use this process to apply for to renew your expanded bronze award. Also within that pack, you'll find the professional, managerial and support staff interim process, and that's an additional process that we've made available to Irish institutions and departments to facilitate enhanced consideration of professional, managerial and support staff at bronze level. There's also a link there to our good practice database. Emer did ask me to share the supports that are available for people as well. So we've got 3 upcoming webinars designed to support applicants. One is on data analysis and the other on smart action planning. And we've delivered those before, but mindful that some people are approaching deadlines in November. We thought it'd be useful to run those again. And then we've got a new webinar later this autumn on preparing for self-assessment. You can also avail of guidance and training for your self-assessment team. Most of the training at the minute is online, so you can contact us for that. And there's information on our website as well about the work of the National Committee and the Practitioner Network. Final thing to say is just to look out for the Athena SWAN Ireland survey that's going to circulate within institutions over the next few months, and that's designed to gather information on people's experience of applying for Athena SWAN in Ireland and how we can develop the charter for future use here. Okay, thanks for your time, everyone.